Hi guys, it's still Sunday night, but I don't want to send a fourth video today, so I'll save this one for tomorrow. I had gone to bed and was reading comments from those 3 videos about gifts, and one person asked, why would I retire at 65? Who would do that? So I don't mind you asking at all. I'll tell you. And I have a bunch of new subs. I think I've gotten over 100 new subs just in the last month. So I don't mind telling this again for all you new people. Pollen, asthma, can't breathe. Mental illness runs in my family. I don't know how long I've suffered with mental illness. I had this really weird, bizarre childhood. The first time I had really bad anxiety attacks was in high school. So I know from the time I was either in the 10th or 11th grade, I had really bad asthma attacks, and I had crying spells, so I probably had depression at that point. Every year, the depression just got worse. I was married. I got married the day after I graduated from high school. I was married for 19 years and had 4 kids. By the time the 4th child was born, I had such serious depression, I had a suicide plan. The 4 kids just are the only things I was trying to keep living for. I wanted them to have a mother. But when you suffer with depression, the voices in your head tell you you are no good, you're not worthy to breathe the air, that you can't do anything right. And then if you have actual people telling you the same thing, you believe it. Anyway, and I didn't go to a doctor then because I had visited my dad in a state mental hospital in the 60s. Terrified me to death. It was not, my mother should never have taken a young child to that place. But anyway, I was scared to try to get treatment because I thought I'd be thrown into a place like that. And no, I didn't want to. We visited him in the state hospital a couple of times, it seems like. He first went to a mental hospital. I was probably, I'm guessing, 2nd grade, and was in and out till I was in middle school, and then, or 6th grade maybe, 5th grade. Because he came home, he lived at home in the 6th grade and set our house on fire. Oh, that's another video. Burned my mother badly. But anyway, mental illness runs in our family. I was scared from the memories of visiting him at that hospital, so I wouldn't ask for help. I didn't even tell my husband how I felt. By the time we'd been married 19 years, the depression was just really, really bad. I was afraid I would hurt him, and so I divorced him, and we didn't get along at all. I always tell people that I was married 19 years and happy the first 2 weeks. So we divorced, and shortly after that, I started treatment. And so I've been under psychiatrist care since my early 30s. And just hung in there and kept trying to take care of 4 kids and work and battle the depression, which is a battle, a daily battle. When my last child turned 18, and I just got a little child support, but when it stopped, I started working my full-time job from 9 to 6, and then from 7 to midnight, I would work somewhere else. I'm going to do a video about my part-time jobs and wore myself out. Because when I got off at midnight, then I had like a 20-minute drive home, get to bed, wake up the next morning, do it all over again. Wore myself out. And the depression kept getting worse and worse. And for one period of time, I saw a psychiatrist who told me, generics of this medicine you're on do not work as well as the, I don't know what you call the original, the name brand. And so she was able to supply me with enough samples to get me through every month. That was the best period of my life. That medicine really helped. Then, after about 3 years maybe, she moved to Houston. And so I no longer had a supply of the real deal, and my insurance wouldn't cover anything but the generic, and there was absolutely no way I could buy it myself. No way. It was like what I made for a month was what that medication cost. So, when she left, I worked for a municipality. I worked 20 years at a library. We had self-funded health insurance, and by the last several years I was employed, they created a clinic. Because we were self-funded on medical, it was to save cost. They developed a clinic that we could go to for free. You didn't get to choose a doctor. There was just nurse practitioners, and but you could go there for free. So that's what I did. I told the nurse practitioner what I was taking from the psychiatrist, and so they prescribed the same thing but in generic. And I went from up here to down here. But I kept taking them. And all through those years from 33 to 66, I would take one medicine so long my body would get too used to it and it wouldn't work. Or some kind of brain chemical mess happened and they wouldn't work any longer. I don't know. It's not like, here's the magic pill you can take the rest of your life and you're going to be okay. No. And most of them, for instance, last July, my current psychiatrist doubled the amount of one medicine I'm on. And she told me in July, it'll probably be December before you even feel the effects. That's how it's always been. It takes 6 months or so to actually get in your system enough to help. And if you're taking one drug and you have to change because it's not working or something, you taper onto a drug, and then when you have to get off of it, you have to taper down. You're not supposed to suddenly stop these kind of medications. Okay, anyway, so I've been under psychiatrist care or that nurse practitioner from 33 to 56. The year I was 56, that January, from November through January, I always have a horrible spell of depression. The holidays and the no sun, not as much sun outside, and I don't know, people who suffer from real depression, it also often goes in cycles. And so I was on that cycle. My cycles, I had like 4 or 5 a year. But I was on that cycle. I'd started on being in the depression hellhole in November and was just getting by day. And then in January of that year, Marie Osmond's son jumped off the balcony of his apartment building and killed himself. And the crazy voices in my head that tell me all the time, you're worthless, you're no good, you can't do anything right, would constantly be saying to me, He was brave enough to do it. Why can't you? I have never been so terrified as when the voices in my head got so loud and saying to me, you just need to do it. Because you can't get away from yourself. If somebody else is talking trash to you, you can hang up the phone or get away. But if it's in your mind, if it's in your head, you can't escape. You can't escape. You can't do anything about it. And those voices don't stop, constantly badgering you to just do it. Well, anyway, I started crying when I heard that, I don't know these people or anything. I started crying when I heard that he jumped off the building, and cried more often than I didn't until April. I mean, I was still working, I was still struggling, but I would be off shelving books or something and tears would just roll down my face, and I couldn't help it. I told some people at work, I just can't hang on any longer. I felt like I was hanging on by the tips of my fingernails to my sanity. And gradually, fingers were turning loose. I just could barely hang on. So I told some people, and they told me, they didn't know what to say, but they told me, just hang in there, hang in there. And then one day I started crying, bawling at work. I did not stop crying for 12 hours. I left work and went to that free clinic. And couldn't even talk when I got there. I was just bawling so bad. And the director of the clinic finally understood, and she told me, you have to go to the hospital, the mental hospital here. And she said, you have to go right now. I can call somebody to take you. I told her, no, I have my car here. I need to go home and get pajamas and things. I can get there by myself. And she said, you have to go. I'm telling you, you have to go. And if you aren't there in 30 minutes, the police are going to come looking for you. You have to promise me you really are going to go. Okay, so I went home and gathered things because there's me and my 4 kids. So we're a family of 5. 4 of us have been in the mental hospital at least once, some multiple times. Our family joke is we should just have a suite with our name on it, reserved for, because somebody from this family is going to show up eventually. So I went to the hospital. I knew what to take. In mental hospitals, you can't have like jogging pants with a string. You can't have shoes with shoelaces. You can't have anything that has a string, a hoodie, nothing like that. You can't have any strings. You can't have anything you could possibly use to hurt you. So you bring things like that you can wear that don't have strings, or they give you scrubs to wear. But I knew I knew the drill. And so I took things, and then when you get to the mental hospital, they take I took deodorant, toothbrush, toothpaste, a book, and an extra pair of pajamas and some house shoes. And they take all that from you and put in a basket and lock it up. And then when you need my book or whatever, toothbrush, you have to go ask for it. They get it out and give it to you. You can't have a spiral notebook because you could undo the spiral and stab yourself. Anyway, I went to the hospital. I had turned 56 that January. I went to the hospital, had this terrible, horrible, no good, very bad breakdown. Really, I just could not stop crying. My sanity was gone. And I stayed there 6 days. Or 7, I really can't remember. Maybe it was 7. Insurance companies like for you to stay 3 days. That's the most they want to pay for. But I was really bad off, and I stayed 6 or 7 days. I don't remember. And while I was there, I saw, at that time I'd been getting my medicine from the nurse practitioner, the generic medicine. I saw a psychiatrist, a real psychiatrist, while I was in the hospital, and he told me, for me to go back to work, you have to have a return to work form signed. And he told me he wouldn't sign. He said, I do not believe you'll ever go back to work full time anyway. Maybe someday you can work part time, but you're not going back to work full time. And I thought he was absolutely crazy because I'm a single woman. I support me. Nobody else supports me. I live on what I make. And he's telling me I can't go back to work. I didn't believe it. So I talked to another psychiatrist. He said the same thing. So I went home, and I was not capable of doing anything. I was not. So I was going to have to go on, I was going to have to retire. It was, April was 2 months before, 2.5 months before I would reach my 20-year anniversary at work. And so I used up all the sick leave I had. I used up, by then I was getting 4 weeks vacation a year. I had saved up vacation time. And so I had enough to carry me through until the middle of June. So I would still be getting a paycheck. Then I ran out of sick leave and vacation days in the middle of June. July 1st was my anniversary when I would be eligible to retire. People at my job donated their vacation days or their sick pay to carry me through until July 1st. They did that for me. And I retired July 1st. Because I'd been in the hospital, I was released to a psychiatrist on the outside, and I had a therapist. And so my therapist went with me to fill out the paperwork to retire and to just be a warm body by my side to help me. She was a wonderful therapist. And so I immediately got my retirement because I had just hit the 20-year mark. It's not a whole lot. If I'd worked 30 years, that would have been great. But, and I had planned to work at least 30 years. But I just barely got, to the 20-year mark with the help of my friends. And so my therapist told me, you need to apply for Social Security disability. So I did. And luckily, I got it on the first application. I know people who've had to apply 3 or 4 times and still don't get it. I got it because they go with you have to send your medical records. I had enough. My file was like this at the psychiatrist. You had to send all that with your application. And anyway, I got Social Security disability at 56. It's gone down. When I was on disability, it was $9.76 a month. Then when I turned 66, it had to roll over to just regular Social Security, and because I'd passed 65, and it went down to $9.40. So with a small retirement check and $940, that's what I have to live on the rest of my life. Who knows what'll happen with Social Security? It's not going to go up. Like, for instance, we got a raise this year on Social Security, but Medicare went up and took more than the raise was. My retirement check from work will always be that same amount. So I have X amount of dollars. Let's say I've got this much to live on now. 15 years from now, when inflation has gone crazy, I'll still have this amount, which I'm barely scraping by now. So the future just holds the price of everything going higher and me not getting any more money. But anyway, I'm grateful to have my Social Security check and my retirement check. Um, my my stay in the hospital was wonderful. It's a nice facility. Very kind people work there. It was a pleasant experience. If I hadn't had kids, I would not have wanted to ever leave because it felt safe in there, and I was getting a lot of therapy and medication, and it was good. Before that, about 10 years before that, I needed a hysterectomy. I forget how many, but I had multiple fibroids. And the insurance wouldn't pay for me to have a hysterectomy and get them out of there, even though I was in excruciating pain, because they grow on a stem, and then as you walk and move and sit down and stuff, they twist on that stem and hurt. And I was losing a lot of blood, but I couldn't have a hysterectomy until they all got to be a certain size. And so when my gynecologist told me that I really needed the hysterectomy, and we found out I was going to have to wait, she just kept telling me, hang in there, hang in there. And I told her I was suicidal. And she told me, it's just your hormones because you're so messed up and you need this hysterectomy. Just hang on, because we're going to get the hysterectomy done eventually. Hysterectomy was the best thing I ever did for myself, by the way. Finally got that. But anyway, that's why I retired at 56. I did not want to. I honestly loved my job. Loved it. Planned to work at least another 10 years or 15. I was hoping I could work until I was 70. Did not want to retire. Was scared to death to retire because I support me. Terrified to retire and to give up that life that I loved. No dogs, no. But I didn't have a choice. And it was for the best. I'm going to run out of minutes here. I'm going to stop now, and maybe I'll do another one tomorrow about what kind of shape I was in then. But anyway, I don't mind you asking. That's why. Nobody wants to retire at 56, or at least I didn't. Bye.